1,469. That is the number of main armament shells fired by British battlecruisers during the opening phase of the Battle of Jutland on the 31st of May 1916. Heavy shells, 12-inch and 13.5-inch, each one costing more than a working man earned in a year. 21 of those shells hit their targets. That is a rate of 1.43%. The most powerful warships afloat, built at ruinous expense by the richest empire on earth, struck their enemy once in every 70 rounds. The Germans, shooting back through the same North Sea haze, hit more than twice as often. 3 British battlecruisers exploded and sank in a combined total of less than 5 minutes. 3,309 men died, more than the entire German death toll for the battle. Rear Admiral Beatty watched the second explosion from his flagship and turned to his flag captain. "There seems to be something wrong with our bloody ships today," he said. There was, and one man had spent 16 years trying to explain what it was. His name was Arthur Hungerford Pollen. He was not a sailor, not an engineer by training, and not a man the Royal Navy wanted to listen to. He was a Catholic intellectual with a second-class Oxford degree, a linotype fortune, and an invention that the Admiralty tested, admired, pirated, and rejected, in roughly that order. The machine he built was called the Argo Clock. It was one of the world's first analog computers, and it was designed to solve the one problem the Royal Navy could not afford to get wrong: how to hit a moving target from a moving ship at ranges where a shell takes 20 seconds to arrive. The Navy chose a cheaper machine instead. The man who built the cheaper machine had been given access to Pollen's workshop, Pollen's blueprints, and Pollen's sea trial results. 9 years later, a royal commission would award Pollen £30,000 in compensation, including £3,000 for moral and intellectual damages, a category so rare it had almost no precedent. By then, the dead at Jutland had been in the ground for a decade, and the question of whether the wrong machine helped put them there would haunt naval history for a century. In 1900, Arthur Pollen's second cousin, Commander William Goodenough, invited him to observe gunnery practice near Malta. Pollen went aboard the second-class cruiser HMS Dido and watched the Royal Navy try to shoot. The experience appalled him. Even at ranges under 1,500 yards, barely a mile, a fraction of what the guns could theoretically reach, shells went wide. The fleet that ruled a quarter of the planet could not reliably hit a stationary target in calm water at a distance a man with good eyes could estimate by sight alone. The reason was mathematical, and it was brutal. A warship does not stand still when it fires. Its target does not stand still either. 2 vessels steaming at 20 knots on different courses, separated by 15,000 yards, present a problem in relative motion that changes continuously. A 13.5-inch shell fired at that range takes roughly 20 seconds to arrive. In those 20 seconds, both ships move approximately 200 yards. The gunner must aim not where the target is, but where it will be, and that calculation must account for the speed and heading of both ships, the trajectory of the shell, the wind, the rotation of the earth, and the roll and pitch of his own vessel beneath his feet. Every variable changes with every passing second. No human mind can solve this in real time. In 1900, the Navy's answer was a collection of separate instruments operated by separate men who shouted numbers to each other across a plotting room. A rangefinder gave the distance, once as a snapshot, already out of date by the time the operator read it. A device called a Dumaresque, invented by Lieutenant John Saumarez, Dumaresque resolved the geometry of 2 ships' courses into a rate of range change and a deflection angle, but only if an operator correctly set the enemy's estimated speed and heading by hand. A range clock ticked forward from the last known range at whatever constant rate the operator had set. None of these devices talked to each other. The system worked after a fashion, at short range and low speed, at the distances and velocities that modern dreadnoughts were designed to fight. It was hopelessly inadequate. Pollen saw the problem clearly, but he was not an engineer and he was not a mathematician. What he was, however, was the managing director of Linotype and Machinery, a precision manufacturing company whose board included one of the most remarkable minds of the Victorian age. William Thomson, 1st Baron Kelvin, sat on that board. Kelvin had spent decades working on the mathematics of tidal prediction, and his brother James Thomson had invented in 1876 a mechanical device called the ball, disc and cylinder integrator, a mechanism that could solve differential equations continuously by converting the rotation of one shaft into the variable speed rotation of another. Kelvin had used James's integrators to build tidal analyzers that predicted the height of the sea at any future time and place. The principle was simple. If you could express a changing quantity as the integral of a rate, you could build a machine to compute it mechanically. It was Kelvin who suggested that the same principle could solve the fire control problem. The range to a target is the integral of the range rate. The bearing to a target is the integral of the bearing rate. Build integrators that accept these rates as inputs, drive them with data from the ship's own course and speed, and the machine will continuously output where to point the guns. Pollen grasped the idea immediately. He did not build it alone. His indispensable collaborator was Harold Isherwood, a mechanical designer of formidable ability who would remain at the center of the project for its entire life. Together, using Linotype's engineering resources, they set out to build a machine that could see the future, or at least the 20 seconds of it, that a shell needed to reach its target. They spent 5 years on the mathematics and the prototypes. The first sea trials took place on HMS Jupiter, a Majestic-class pre-dreadnought, in 1905 and 1906. The results were, in the Admiralty's careful language, completely unsuccessful, but showed promise. The kind of verdict that in any healthy institution would have triggered more funding and more trials. Further tests followed on HMS Ariadne in 1907 and 1908 with improved equipment. Pollen was spending his own money and Linotype's resources. He had powerful supporters. Admiral Sir John Fisher, the volcanic First Sea Lord, who was rebuilding the fleet around the dreadnought concept, encouraged him openly. Captain John Jellicoe, then Director of Naval Ordnance, was an early champion. Captain Percy Scott, the Royal Navy's foremost gunnery expert, saw the potential. In 1906, Pollen negotiated a development contract with the Admiralty, unlike anything offered to a civilian inventor before. The Navy would keep his ideas secret. He would not sell his system abroad. In return, the Admiralty would fund continued development through a company Pollen was planning to establish. The arrangement made sense for both sides. Pollen got money and institutional support. The Navy got exclusive access to what might prove a decisive advantage. There was, however, a condition that would prove fatal. As part of the collaboration, naval officers would be given access to Pollen's work, on his designs, his workshop, his trial results. One of those officers was a young gunnery lieutenant named Frederick Dreyer. He had met Pollen briefly before. This time the meeting would last longer, and it would cost Pollen everything. To understand what Pollen built and what the Navy chose instead, you need to understand the problem at the level of physics. Two ships, each making 20 knots on converging courses, separated by 8 miles. A shell leaves the muzzle at nearly half a mile per second, climbs to several thousand feet, and descends on a trajectory shaped by gravity, air resistance, wind, and the Coriolis effect of the Earth's rotation. The shell takes 20 seconds to arrive. During those 20 seconds, the target moves 200 yards. The firing ship also moves 200 yards. The range between them changes continuously, and the rate at which the range changes is itself changing, because the ships are on converging courses. This is not arithmetic, it is calculus. The fire control problem is a system of differential equations that must be solved continuously, in real time, aboard a platform that rolls and pitches with every wave. Pollen's solution was called the Argo Clock, and it was, in essence, one of the world's first electrically powered analog computers, a mechanical differential analyzer built for war. The heart of the machine was the ball, disc, and cylinder integrator derived from James Thomson's 1876 design. The principle is deceptively simple. A steel ball sits in contact with both a rotating disc and a cylinder. The disc spins at a speed representing one variable, say the rate of range change. The position of the ball on the disc determines how much of that rotation is transferred to the cylinder, whose rotation represents the integral, the accumulated range itself. Move the ball closer to the center of the disc and less rotation transfers. Move it outward and more transfers. The result is continuous mechanical integration. The machine computes the running total of a changing quantity without ever stopping to recalculate. The complete Argo system had 4 components working together. The clock itself contained an internal Dumeresque mechanism that resolved the geometry of 2 ships' relative motion into range rate and bearing rate. A dividing mechanism took the across-the-line speed and divided it by the current range to compute the angular bearing rate, a calculation that is trivial on paper but fiendishly difficult to perform mechanically and continuously. Variable speed drive integrators then accumulated these rates into continuously updated range and bearing values presented on clock-like dials. The second component was the Argo plotter, a true course plotting table where pencils, driven by the clock's outputs, automatically trace the paths of both ships on paper, giving the operator a bird's-eye picture of the tactical situation as it unfolded. Third was the Argo rangefinder mounting, a gyro-stabilized platform for a bar and Stroud 9-foot coincidence rangefinder that compensated for the ship's roll, pitch, and yaw, allowing the operator to hold a steady aim in rough seas. Fourth were the gyroscopes themselves, which Pollen and Isherwood had to develop almost from scratch, since the gyros available in 1905 were far too primitive for the precision required. The critical word is synthetic. The Argo combined all inputs, own ship's course and speed, rangefinder data, bearing observations, into a single unified geometric model. Once initialized correctly, the system maintained the firing solution automatically. When the target changed course, the integrators adapted continuously. The change appeared immediately on the plotter as a shift in the target's track. When visibility dropped and no new rangefinder readings came in, the clock kept running, projecting the solution forward from its last known good data. The machine, in effect, maintained a mental model of the engagement that persisted through gaps in information. The Dreyer Fire Control Table took a fundamentally different approach, where the Argo was synthetic, building one picture from all inputs. The Dreyer was analytical, breaking the problem into separate pieces worked by separate men. The table itself was a sturdy iron surface, fitted with instruments connected by rotating shafts, bicycle chains, and mechanical linkages, operated by 7 or more men simultaneously in the transmitting station deep beneath the armoured deck. Its range plot was a moving paper strip on which rangefinder readings were marked as dots against time. An operator eyeballed the dots, laid a wire grid over them, and fitted a straight line by hand. The slope of that line gave the range rate. A separate bearing plot did the same for bearing. A handset Dumaresque resolved the geometry. A range clock ticked forward the predicted range at whatever constant rate the operator had derived from the plot. The system had real strengths. The graphical plot allowed experienced operators to spot and reject bad rangefinder readings, a critical advantage because rangefinders in this era were inconsistent, and a single erroneous reading could throw off the entire solution. The Dreyer Table could accept inputs from every rangefinder on the ship. The Argo, by contrast, relied on a single gyro-stabilized rangefinder, making it vulnerable to what one analyst later called a cycloptic dependence on a single data source. The table's modular construction meant individual components could fail without bringing down the whole system, and the Dreyer Table cost £635. The Argo Clock cost £2,133. But the Dreyer's weaknesses emerged precisely when they mattered most. When the target changed course, the operator had to wait for enough new rangefinder dots to accumulate on the plot strip before he could rederive the rate. And separating a target course change from his own ship's course change was almost impossible without independent information. When visibility was intermittent and rangefinder readings arrived in sporadic clusters, separated by long gaps, the plot became sparse and unreliable. The operator was fitting a line to 3 or 4 scattered dots, and when the range rate itself was changing, as it does in a high-speed chase on converging courses, which was precisely the situation Beatty's battlecruisers would face at Jutland, the Dreyer system modeled range change as a constant rate adjusted in discrete 25-yard-per-minute steps, a linear approximation to a non-linear process. The Argo's variable speed integrators handled continuously varying rates by their nature, smoothly, without stepping. 2 machines, 2 philosophies, one built by a civilian outsider, with access to the finest precision engineering in Britain, the other built by a naval officer who had been shown how the first one worked.
Frederick Charles Dreyer was born on the 8th of January 1878 in Parsonstown, Ireland, now called Birr, the son of John Louis Emile Dreyer, a Danish-born astronomer who compiled the New General Catalogue of Nebulae that astronomers still use today. He entered the Royal Naval College at Dartmouth in 1891, trained at HMS Excellent, the gunnery school on Whale Island, and served under Captain Percy Scott. He was, by all accounts, a first-rate gunnery officer. He was also not a trained engineer and not a mathematician. His mechanical design capability came from his brother, Major General John Tuthill Dreyer of the Royal Artillery, and an engineer named Keith Elphinston. In late 1907, the Admiralty appointed Dreyer as assistant to the Director of Naval Ordnance, a post then held by Captain Jellicoe, the same man who had championed Pollen's work. This appointment gave Dreyer direct, legitimate, officially sanctioned access to every aspect of Pollen's system. He visited Pollen's linotype works at Broadheath, near Altrincham. He assisted in trials of the Argo equipment on HMS Ariadne. The Admiralty itself would later state under oath that Dreyer was thoroughly familiar with the various suggestions and trials of the apparatus of the Argo Company, and took part to some extent in some of the sea trials of the same. This was not espionage. It was not even subtle. The Navy invited its own officer to study a civilian inventor's closely guarded work, and that officer then built a competing system. The competing system appeared in 1911.
Dreyer's prototype fire control table. By 1912, the contest was formally joined. The Admiralty ordered 6 Argo clocks and 5 Dreyer tables for comparative evaluation aboard fleet ships. But no head-to-head competitive trial was ever conducted. The historian Norman Friedman noted this omission specifically. Critics, then and since, have argued the absence was deliberate, that Dreyer and his allies controlled the testing process, and that a fair comparison would have exposed the Dreyer table's limitations. What happened instead was something worse than a rigged competition. In 1912, the Admiralty declined to renew Pollen's exclusivity agreement. He was now free to sell abroad, a right that was meaningless without Admiralty endorsement. But the signal was clear. The institutional relationship was ending. Then in 1913, the final blow. The Admiralty's gunnery branch produced a document titled Pollen Aim Corrector System. Part 1, Technical History and Technical Comparison with Commander F.C. Dreyer's Fire Control System, known internally as P.1024. It was the official evaluation that would determine which system the Royal Navy adopted. Its authors were Lieutenant Cecil Usborne and Commander Frederick Dreyer. The man whose system was being compared to Pollen's had co-written the comparison. He was simultaneously competitor, evaluator, and beneficiary. The document recommended the Dreyer Table. The Admiralty accepted the recommendation. Pollen was precipitously removed from the list of recognized naval contractors. He was threatened with prosecution under the Official Secrets Act, a remarkable inversion, given that it was his secrets that had been shared with his competitor, not the other way around. The Argo Company's relationship with the Royal Navy was finished. The Dreyer Table Mark III, the version adopted for General Fleet Service, incorporated a gyroscope, one of Pollen's key innovations. Later Marks replaced the Argo Clock mechanism that had been used in the Mark II with a new rate-keeping device called the Dreyer Elphinstone Clock. According to records cited by the historian John Sumida, this device was a copy that Dreyer and engineer Keith Elphinstone had taken from the plans of the Argo Clock, to which they had been given access. The allegation of intellectual theft is not the invention of conspiracy theorists. It was investigated by a royal commission, supported by the Admiralty's own sworn testimony, and compensated with public money. Jellicoe, the man who had once championed Pollen, had by this time become Dreyer's most ardent supporter. He later wrote with unusual candor, "It fell to me to turn down his inventions on more than one occasion." By the time of Jutland, Dreyer was not merely the designer of the Navy's fire control system. He was Jellicoe's flag captain on the fleet flagship Iron Duke. The insider had become the gatekeeper. To understand why the Navy chose Dreyer over Pollen, cost alone does not suffice, though the arithmetic was convenient. £635 against 2,133, a ratio of roughly 1 to 3. The deeper reason was institutional. Pollen was a civilian, a Catholic, a man with opinions and connections, and a tendency to tell admirals they were wrong. His system was a black box, elegant, integrated, and opaque. If it broke, only Pollen's company could fix it. Dreyer was one of their own. His table was made of parts they understood, assembled in a way they could modify, built by firms they controlled. The Dreyer Table was the Navy's machine. The Argo Clock was Pollen's. A single broadside from a dreadnought's main armament cost over £500 in ammunition. The price difference between the two systems, roughly £1,500, was 3 broadsides. If the Argo improved accuracy enough to save 3 wasted salvos in a single engagement, it would have paid for itself. The Admiralty's procurement culture calculated the cost of the machine. It did not calculate the cost of missing. On the morning of the 31st of May 1916, the Grand Fleet sailed from Scapa Flow and Rosyth on what both sides expected to be a routine sweep of the North Sea. Admiral Jellicoe commanded the main body, 24 dreadnought battleships, steaming south from Orkney. Vice Admiral Beatty commanded the scouting force, 6 battlecruisers, and 4 fast Queen Elizabeth-class battleships, racing east from the Firth of Forth. Neither force knew that the German high seas fleet was also at sea. What followed was the largest naval battle in history, measured by tonnage engaged, and the last time dreadnought battleships fought each other in a fleet action. The fire control machines in the transmitting stations of those ships were about to face the only test that mattered. Beatty's battlecruisers made contact with Vice Admiral Hipper's first scouting group at approximately 3:45 in the afternoon. Hipper had 5 battlecruisers, Lutzow, Derfflinger, Seydlitz, Moltke, and von der Tann. Beatty had 6, Lion, Princess, Royal, Queen Mary, Tiger, New Zealand, and Indefatigable, plus the 4 Queen Elizabeths of the 5th Battle Squadron, though a signalling error delayed their entry into the fight. On paper, Beatty had overwhelming superiority. In practice, almost everything that could go wrong did. The conditions were catastrophic for British gunnery. Beatty's ships were silhouetted against the western sky, bright sharp targets against the afternoon light. Hipper's ships merged into the dull grey haze of the eastern horizon, presenting the worst possible conditions for British Bar and Stroud coincidence rangefinders, which needed strong vertical lines in the target silhouette to produce accurate readings. German Zeiss stereoscopic rangefinders worked on a different optical principle and performed better in exactly this kind of low contrast light. The Germans had another advantage the British did not know about, a device called the Mittlungsapparat, an electromechanical averaging machine that automatically combined range readings from all 7 rangefinders on a capital ship into a single best estimate. British ships typically fed a single rangefinder into the fire control system. Every Argo rangefinder mounting in the fleet, Pollen's gyro-stabilized platform, was paired with a Dreyer Table, not an Argo Clock. The stabilized mount was the one part of Pollen's system the Navy had been willing to buy. The computer it was designed to feed had been rejected. A second signaling error compounded the disaster. Beatty's distribution of fire was botched. 2 British ships concentrated on the same German target, while SMS Derfflinger was left completely unengaged. Her gunnery officer, Korvettenkapitän Georg von Haase, could scarcely believe his luck. He later wrote that by some mistake they were being left out, and that he laughed grimly and began to engage his enemy with complete calm, as at gun practice, with continually increasing accuracy. For roughly 10 minutes, Derfflinger fired without a single shell coming back. The results of that calm practice were about to be measured in human lives. At 4:02, SMS von der Tann hit HMS Indefatigable with 3 28-centimeter shells on her upper deck aft. Moments later, another shell struck a turret forward. The magazines detonated. Indefatigable broke apart and sank. 1,017 men died. 2 survived. 24 minutes later, Derfflinger and Seydlitz concentrated their fire on HMS Queen Mary. Von Haase's methodical shooting found the range, and 3 shells from Derfflinger and 2 from Seydlitz struck almost simultaneously. Queen Mary's forward magazines exploded first, then her after magazines. The ship split in 2. A column of smoke and flame rose 1,000 feet. Debris rained down on the destroyer Laurel, steaming alongside. 1,266 men died. 20 survived. It was at this moment that Beatty made his remark about something being wrong with his ships. The flag captain, Ernley Chatfield, said nothing. There was nothing useful to say. The aggregate numbers for this phase told a story of systemic failure. Beatty's battlecruisers fired 1,469 main armament rounds and scored 21 hits, the 1.43% that opened this film. In the same engagement, Hipper's 5 battlecruisers achieved 3.89%. SMS Moltke hit HMS Tiger 9 times in the first 12 minutes. 44 heavy caliber hits struck British ships against 20 on German ships. The British had more guns, bigger ships, and thicker armour. They lost, but Jutland was not one battle, it was 2. When Jellicoe's Grand Fleet deployed into line of battle at approximately 6:15 that evening, the picture transformed. The Grand Fleet's battleships were better trained. They had access to a protected gunnery range at Scapa Flow, while Beatty's ships at Rosyth had none at all. Visibility now favoured the British, and the Grand Fleet's shooting showed it. The battleships achieved 3.7% accuracy, exceeding the overall German fleet average of 3.39. HMS Iron Duke, with Dreyer himself as flag captain, opened fire on SMS König at roughly 12,000 yards and scored 7 hits from 90 rounds in the opening minutes, approximately 7.8%. Dreyer's own ship, with Dreyer's own table, operated by the best trained crew in the fleet, produced the results that justified the system. The 3rd Battlecruiser Squadron under Rear Admiral Hood achieved 4.39%, the best British formation rate of the day, 16 hits from 373 rounds. Yet even this redemption carried its own catastrophe. At 6:30, Hood's flagship, HMS Invincible, appeared as a clear silhouette through a gap in the haze. Lutzow and Derflinger fired 3 salvos each. Invincible exploded and sank in 90 seconds. 1,026 men died, 6 survived, 3 British battlecruisers gone, 3,309 dead, more than the entire German death toll for the battle. The total losses were staggering. Britain lost 14 ships, 3 battlecruisers, 3 armoured cruisers and 8 destroyers, with 6,094 killed, 674 wounded, and 115,000 tons of warships on the bottom of the North Sea. Germany lost 11 ships, 1 battlecruiser, 1 pre-dreadnought, 4 light cruisers, and 5 torpedo boats, with 2,551 killed and 61,000 tons sunk. By every material measure, Germany won the battle. By every strategic measure, equal that the High Seas Fleet never risked another major engagement, Britain won the war. But Jutland left a question that material and strategic accounting could not answer. Was the gunnery failure preventable? The honest answer, the one this story owes its audience, is that historians disagree, and the disagreement is not trivial. John Sumida and Catherine Epstein argue that the Argo Clock's ability to maintain a firing solution during course changes and intermittent visibility, the exact conditions of Beatty's action, would have given the battlecruisers a measurable advantage. The system's automatic rate keeping would have kept guns on target when Dreyer Table operators were struggling to derive new rates from 3 or 4 scattered dots on a paper strip. John Brooks and the analysts of the Dreadnought project counter that no fire control computer could overcome the fundamental problem. That afternoon, British rangefinders were inadequate for the conditions. Too few reliable readings came in for any system to work well, and the Argo's dependence on a single rangefinder would have been a liability, not an asset. Brooks has specifically argued that Beatty's ships would have been even more disadvantaged with Argo equipment. Both sides are partly right. And acknowledging that does not diminish the story. It makes it more damning. The fire control computer was not the only thing wrong. British shells were defective. An alarming number failed to detonate on impact or broke up before penetrating armor. Propellant handling was reckless. Magazine doors were left open to speed up the rate of fire, which is why hits on turrets caused catastrophic magazine explosions instead of contained damage. Training was inadequate. Beatty's ships had no proper gunnery range, and Beatty's tactics were aggressive to the point of recklessness, closing range when he should have used his superior speed to maintain distance and exploit his bigger guns. But this is precisely the point. The Admiralty did not merely choose the wrong computer, it chose the wrong computer, and failed to fix the shells, and failed to enforce magazine safety, and failed to provide training facilities, and failed to conduct a fair evaluation of the available technology. The fire control question is not the whole story. It is the thread that, when pulled, unravels the entire fabric of pre-war Admiralty complacency. The institution that rejected Pollen's machine was the same institution that accepted defective shells, tolerated dangerous propellant handling, and sent men to war with equipment that had never been properly tested against the alternative. The pattern is singular. The failures are plural. Arthur Pollen did not go to Jutland. He went to Fleet Street. From April 1915, he had reinvented himself as a full-time naval correspondent for Land and Water, a weekly journal edited by his childhood friend from the oratory school, Hilaire Belloc. His contacts remained formidable. James Masterton Smith, private secretary to the First Lord of the Admiralty, fed him information, and Captain William Reginald Hall, now Director of Naval Intelligence, and the same officer who had been impressed by the Argo system during trials on HMS Natal, kept him close. After Jutland, Pollen wrote with such informed ferocity in the Westminster Gazette that Jellicoe issued a Grand Fleet Order, reportedly dated the 23rd of August 1916, forbidding officers from corresponding with Pollen about fire control. The man whose invention had been stolen was now forbidden from discussing the subject with the men who had to use the inferior replacement. In 1917, Pollen crossed the Atlantic as an unofficial propagandist, cultivating American naval leaders at a moment when the United States had just entered the war. John Buchan, Director of Propaganda, offered him a knighthood and salary to continue in an official capacity. Pollen declined. He said he would be more effective as an independent voice, and he was probably right, though one suspects that a man who had been threatened with the Official Secrets Act for knowing too much about his own invention was not inclined to accept favors from the state that had wronged him. The reckoning came after the war, and it came slowly. Pollen applied to the Royal Commission on awards to inventors in 1920 and again in 1923, seeking compensation for the use of his ideas in the Dreyer Table. Both applications were unsuccessful. The Commission finally heard his case in 1925, and the proceedings produced testimony that the Admiralty must have regretted allowing on the record. Dreyer himself had applied for additional compensation. He had already received £5,000 in 1915 for what the Navy called his rather important and continuing services to fire control. The Admiralty, attempting to resist Dreyer's new claim, provided sworn statements acknowledging that Dreyer had been given extensive access to Pollen's work. The Commission found that certain aspects of the Dreyer Table, Mark III, were similar to Pollen's system. Pollen was awarded £30,000, roughly £1.5 million in today's purchasing power. The sum included an exceptional £3,000 for moral and intellectual damages, a category so rarely invoked that it amounted to a judicial admission that Pollen had been not merely underpaid, but wronged. Dreyer's application for additional money was denied. The scholar John Brooks disputes certain details of the Commission's reasoning, arguing that two key members had not clearly grasped the functional distinctions between components of the two systems. The objection has technical merit. It does not erase the Admiralty's own sworn testimony, the £30,000, or the moral damages. Pollen lived another 12 years. He returned to the Linotype board, served as a director of Birmingham Small Arms and the Daimler Company, became vice president of the Federation of British Industries and chairman of the British Commonwealth Union. In 1927, he was elected Master of the Worshipful Company of Coachmakers, a comfortable dignity for a man who had once tried to revolutionize naval warfare. In 1936, he became chairman of The Tablet, the leading Catholic magazine, returning in his final year to the faith that had shaped his family for 3 generations. He had turned from engineering to journalism to business to religion, and each turn carried him further from the transmitting stations where his machine should have been. Arthur Hungerford Pollen died on the 28th of January 1937 at his home at 238 St. James Court, Buckingham Gate, London. He was 70 years old. His obituary appeared in the Times the following day. It did not mention the Argo Clock. The Dreyer Table's analytical approach, plotting range against time, deriving rates by eyeballing dots on a paper strip proved a technological dead end. The Admiralty itself acknowledged this when it introduced the Admiralty Fire Control Table from 1927, fitting it to every new capital ship, from HMS Nelson through HMS Vanguard, the last battleship the Royal Navy ever built. The AFCT adopted Pollen's key innovation, variable speed drive integrators, and a synthetic approach to the firing solution. The machine that the Admiralty had rejected in 1913 became the foundation of the machine the Admiralty adopted 14 years later. The American lineage was even more direct. Hannibal Ford, founder of the Ford Instrument Company in 1915, developed the Ford Rangekeeper, using a concept that was unmistakably Pollen's, dividing by the range and integrating with respect to time to derive the bearing angle. Ford was worried enough about a potential patent infringement lawsuit that he asked the United States Navy to indemnify him. The Ford Rangekeeper evolved into the Mark 37 gunfire control system, widely regarded as the finest anti-aircraft fire control system of the Second World War, fitted to every class of American warship, from destroyers to battleships. It remained in service until the 1990s. The principles that Pollen and Isherwood worked out in a linotype workshop before the First World War were still guiding shells to their targets 80 years later. The man who brought Pollen back from obscurity was John Tetsuro Sumida, an American historian of Japanese descent who spent his career at the University of Maryland. His 1979 article in the Journal of Modern History, arguing that Pollen's system was superior and had been pirated, shook the foundations of British naval scholarship. He catalogued Pollen's private papers, now held at Churchill Archives Centre in Cambridge, and published his magnum opus in defence of naval supremacy in 1989. Foreign Affairs called it superbly researched and definitive. The Naval Institute named him Author of the Year in 1996. He received the Samuel Eliot Morrison Prize for lifetime contributions to military history in 2020. Sumida died on the 8th of February 2025, aged 75. His correspondence with Anthony Pollen, Arthur's younger son, who had spent decades fighting for his father's reputation, remains sealed at Churchill Archives Centre until 2029. Sumida's conclusions did not go unchallenged. John Brooks, a British scholar with an engineering background, published Dreadnought Gunnery and the Battle of Jutland in 2005, arguing that the practical differences between the two systems were smaller than Sumida claimed, and that Jutland's failures had multiple causes beyond fire control. The debate continues. Catherine Epstein's Analog Superpowers, published in 2024 and winner of the Samuel Eliot Morrison Award for Naval Literature, revived the case for Pollen, placing his story in the broader context of how national security states appropriate private technology. She described Dreyer as an officer unable or unwilling to recognize the limits of his competence. The scholarly argument will not be settled soon. The human cost was settled on the 31st of May, 1916. We covered the same Admiralty in earlier films. The institution that fired Hugh Dowding after the Battle of Britain, that destroyed Tommy Flowers' computers after the war, that resisted radar until Watson Watt forced the issue. The pattern is always the same. A man from outside the establishment builds something the establishment needs. The establishment takes the idea, discards the man, and fields an inferior version built by someone it trusts. The cost is paid by the men who serve under that establishment, in cockpits, in code rooms, in transmitting stations, and in the grey waters of the North Sea. Arthur Pollen received £30,000 for an invention that changed the trajectory of naval warfare and laid the foundations of modern computing. 3,000 of those pounds were for moral and intellectual damages. His obituary did not mention the machine. His name does not appear in the Jutland Memorial at Chatham, or at Portsmouth, or at Plymouth, where the names of 6,094 dead men are carved in stone. They were the cost of missing. He spent 16 years trying to reduce that cost. The Admiralty spent 16 years making sure he could not.